back. It's 3 March, day 8 of Putin's war on Ukraine, and I found this movie from 1962 called Taras Bulba, the Cossack. And the reason I'm playing this is because of this line in the Ukrainian national anthem, and we'll show that we brothers are the Cossack nation. So, we'll take a look at this film and see what it says here. It says, in 1959, Poland annexed the vast Russian territory known as the Ukraine. At first, attempts were made by the Poles to impose their culture and religion upon the conquered peoples. Wow. It sounds like almost exactly what Russia did to Ukraine and what Russia's trying to do now. It says Polish overlords governed Ukrainian cities such as Kyiv, and Ukrainian youth were sent to Polish cities of Dubno and Krakow to be educated. But the pride of the Ukrainians was fierce, and eventually rebellion broke out. An army of the most stalwart Ukrainian warriors, known as Cossacks, was mobilized against the Poles and their Tatar sympathizers. This is the tale of the Cossack leader Taras Bulba, the most ardent fighter in the Ukraine, in its bitter struggle for independence. Wow. Let's see, I might just skip through some of this here. We're not going to watch that. So I'm going to skip through some of this so we can find something good here. Alright, so this must be Taras Bulba right here.
Son of mine. If they should try to come back to this house, we must kill all of them. You hear?
Yes, Taras. If you send your sons to the siege, they will learn how to be warriors. It is only there at the Cossack headquarters that they can become true Cossacks, Taras.
Well said. I'll bring them to the siege myself. Gorkov, you must be on your way to Kyiv now. Get ready. Go and fetch me my son.
I'm gonna have to watch this entire movie.
I know you will be happy to see your son again, huh?
You know my son? No? Yes, it's a bird.
So, you go off to school to learn how to be men? Dressed like clowns.
You know, Papa, it was your idea to send us to Kyiv.
Bad idea?
Have you forgotten how much you wanted us to go? You said you wanted us to be educated properly.
Oh. Now, are you saying it's all my fault? Gorkov, did you...
It's interesting how Hollywood makes all these Cossacks look like Huns or Mongolians, and maybe some of them were, but I'm not so sure. We'll just skip through the movie and see if I see any interesting parts, especially the fighting scenes. I'll have to go back and watch all of this. This looks interesting. But of course, we have to understand this is a Hollywood Western version of what they think Cossacks are. And, you know, anybody that's not white European, Anglo-Saxon usually is not portrayed very well in Hollywood, especially in the 50s and 60s. Let's see. Oh, hold on.
I'm guilty of stealing. Sentenced to 100 lashes. That's fair. In honor of your arrival, I pass you the whip. Delighted.
100 lashes? Oh, wow.
You go, my son. Don't spare the whip.
I won't whip him. I'm sorry, but I don't approve of it.
Call yourself a Cossack?
I don't know. Maybe, you know, maybe the Ukrainians should get like the highest ranking officer they can find and put them in the squares and live stream it and whip them and let them know, you know, let the Russians know what they have coming for them. Just an idea, but, you know, that wouldn't look too good. But anyway, let's see what else we have here. So they kind of make them like Mongolians or Huns. Yeah, they're living in tents. So I don't know if this is accurate or not. Here. Good. Fight scene. Let's see what the hell they do here. Of course, you got to remember this is a Western Hollywood version of what they think they used to fight. Like, if I had cavalry like that, I would never go for a frontal attack on a castle like that. But that's just me. So you see how they're trying to portray him as this barbaric, pagan, unchristian kind of nation of heathens and, you know, people living in tents and not civilized. Oh, wait a minute, here's another battle scene. Let's see. basically they've made the Cossacks into like, Native Americans or rebels or something. It's a Hollywood version. I guess that's to get the kids into the audience there. So anyway, for what it's worth, I just thought I'd throw that in there. That looked pretty interesting. This is about the Cossacks. Now, me being a Jew, we've always heard the stories about the Cossacks being used by the, by the Russians to basically do the pogroms, on the Jews in the shtetls and things like that. But I don't know. I don't know if that's more propaganda or what. Okay, so I just think it's interesting that they put that in there into the national anthem, the Cossack Nation. I don't know really how many Ukrainians actually really identify with being Cossacks, but so I guess the point is that the Cossacks are a free people, a warrior people. They don't, they don't take their freedom for granted, and they're uncontrollable. That no one's going to rule over them. That's the whole point, I guess you could say. Now, I got this kind of idea yesterday, looking at the map there, and with the artillery barrages that are going on, I started going over all the Russian artillery that they have. Okay, and I made a list with all the different types of Russian artillery, all the different types of rockets, self-propelled mortars and self-prepared guns that they have, and I came up with their ranges. So it seems like, they're ranging anywhere from 6 out to about 90 kilometers. Now they do have this one that's called the Iskander. It's a hypersonic short-range ballistic missile up to 500 kilometers. But it seems like the average range is about 40 kilometers. Okay? And for the artillery, it looks like the howitzers are about up to 40, 45 kilometers. And then after that, you get mostly into rocket launchers that are going up to about 90 kilometers. So I started thinking, if Russia's raining down all their artillery and rockets onto Kyiv and these other cities to break the will of the people, then maybe and the Air Force is not, the Ukrainian Air Force is not capable of going out and knocking out these artillery pieces. Maybe what the Ukrainian army should really seriously think about doing is something that we learned when I was in the military, that we create these, they called them Jaeger teams. They were basically, we trained to be overrun by the Russian tanks, okay, in Europe. So there were going to be massive amounts of Russian tanks steaming through. And basically the Russians, they tried the American approach, which was to send light tanks and infantry down to rush and take the cities, and that didn't work. So what they're doing now is slowly trying to surround the cities and then bomb them into submission. A good example would be Aleppo. Aleppo in Syria is exactly what the Russians did. The Syrian army moved in and surrounded the city, cut off the roads, and then the Russians would come in with their artillery, their rocket launchers, and their bombers and bomb the hell out of the Syrian population and into submission. Now, during during the Cold War, what we practiced for, I wasn't even combat infantry, but we had to practice with these Jaeger teams, and we had Jaeger team training, even though, I wasn't like a special forces or infantry soldier. We still had Jaeger team training, because basically the idea is that we would be overrun, cut off, our bases would be surrounded, our cities would be surrounded. And so what we would do is go out into the woods with our tow missiles and javelin missiles and set up hit teams. You know, basically you go out with this squad. You'd have 3 or 4 guys with the tow missiles, and you'd have the other guys as a fire team support to protect them. And we would go out in the woods by the roads, and we knew we would give us, you know, from a city we would go out and we were trained to cover a certain sector. So like here, this would be our sector here, these woods. We would be in these woods along this road because we knew eventually the Russian armor, the Russian artillery would be coming down this way. And the Russians always do it the same way. Okay, they haven't changed in like 40 years. They always thrust with their tanks, followed by their APCs, and then followed by their artillery, their self-propelled artillery, their rocket launchers, and then their towed artillery. So what we would train for is to let the main tanks go by, okay, because they would use those after they softened up a city with their artillery. They would use those to assault with the tanks the very last phase, okay? But first phase would be to place your artillery around in a ring around the city and hammer it until it was submitted. So what we were trained to do is to go out before the Russians got to us into the woods along the roads, let the tanks go by, and then start hitting their self-propelled artillery, their rocket launchers, and even their supply trucks, because, you know, tanks can't do assaults without supplies, ammunition, and fuel. So this is what I would suggest, okay? Up to about 40 kilometers out, and this is just based on my training, up to about 40 kilometers out, because that seems to be about the range of the effective range of the self-propelled artillery and rocket launchers. So you're looking at 40 kilometers out there, and then what you do is you look at the areas closest to that. So along these roads right here, this road and this road, and then this road here, this is what I would do. I would, if I had 10 teams, I would give each team a sector to cover along the roads. They would hide in the woods. They would come out at night, use their infrared, you know, also use, counter battery intelligence, and hunt down these rocket launchers, hunt down these self-propelled artillery, and just concentrate on them and avoid the tanks, and use the tow missiles, use javelin missiles. I've got a whole list here of different the best type of ones. The best ones are the ones that one guy can carry instead of 2. That makes you mobile. Okay, so let's take a look at that. The Swedes have a lot of good stuff. I don't know why, but I looked at all the equipment and it seems like the Swedes have the best stuff. So let's take a look at that. This one actually is a French version. It doesn't look very big or effective. It only has a 500 meter range, but if that's all you can get, so be it. Here's another one by the Swedes. It's called an RBS-56. I've never used this before. It looks like you need 2 men because it's got a little tripod here in this Austrian picture. It has an effective range out to almost 2.2 kilometers, so you could really sit back and hit them hard. Let's see, and then let's take a look here. There's another one. The Swedes have some more here. there's an MBT law. This is the baby right here you really want, because look at that. One guy can carry that around. It's going to have an effective range about 1,000 meters, about 1 kilometer out. Can penetrate up to 500 millimeters of armor. Now, the T-84s and the T-72s with their reactive armor, it's not going to take them out. But if you're going after the self-propelled artillery and the the Russian missile launchers, they're not going to have that much armor. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So we'll just grab this one here. This is a typical tornado. See, it's just a truck. It's not going to have hardly any armor at all. So it's going to be easy pickings. All you have to do is aim at it. It's got infrared. It's going to go right for the engine block. It'll take that out, and that'll be the end of that artillery piece right there. So what I'm saying, let's see, that MBT law, that's a good one. I don't know if you're getting any of this equipment. The Turks have invented this one. It doesn't looks like about like the French one, but look at this. 2,500 meters. It's called the Karaoke missile. I don't know how effective it is. It doesn't look like much. Here's the baby I really like, the Javelin. We used these when I was in the field, and God Almighty, these things are the best. Because what these things do is they fly in at the target, and right before they get to the target, they go up in the air and then come down, penetrating the flat upper part of the armor instead of hitting it on the side. But if you don't have that, that's okay. The Swedes have another one called an AT-4, very similar to that other one there. This one, very effective, but out to 2.1 kilometers. So I think that's the strategy. This is your kill zone, my friends. You want to assemble these teams, about 8-9 guys. You want to get about 3 or 4 of these missiles. Go out and try to just avoid the tanks, avoid their infantry, avoid their APCs. Come out at night and hit their artillery. Hit their self-propelled artillery, and then go after the missile launchers. So what you can do is the Ukrainian Air Force can start going after the missile launchers that go out to about 90 kilometers there. So we want to call these like Jaeger hunt teams, okay? They come out at night, they hide during the day, they hunt down these artillery pieces, these missile launchers, and they take them out systematically and just avoid the tanks. And what I basically would do is distribute about half of my anti-tank weapons and missiles with these teams, and leave the other half inside the city in case the Russians decide to rush the city with their tanks. Because once you take out their artillery, it's basically game over. Okay? Their tanks are never going to get in close enough without artillery support. Now, they can still throw cruise missiles at you. They can still bomb you with their fighters, but effectively, if you take out their artillery support, you killed off any kind of offensive capability for them to take any kind of city. And if they are stupid enough, then you've got your other anti-tank weapons there to destroy whatever they have left. I think that's the effective way to say. You can do this in every city. Create these, you don't have to have really specialized skilled people. You can use territorial militia, you can use National Guard, you can use reserves, and maybe send a couple of trained guys with them. But basically, you just need 3 or 4 missiles and then 3 or 4 guys to guard these guys. This is what we trained in. We had people that they'd show us how to use the missiles, but basically we were used as infantry support to protect those teams, fire teams. Anyway, that's just my suggestion. I'm sure there's much better people in the military and the Ukrainian military than I am, but that's what I would do. So it seems to me on the news media that the Russian artillery, this is what they're going to use to break you, is to soften you up, just like they did in Aleppo with the, self-propelled artillery and rocket launchers. And then once they've broken the morale of the people, they're going to move in with the tanks. So what I would do is blunt that. Avoid the tanks. Send out your Jaeger hit teams. Take out all their missile launchers and take out all of their self-propelled artillery, and that'll blunt their offensive. Because I guarantee you, there's not that many tanks along this road. They're pushing this way and getting them closer to the outskirts of Kyiv. Okay? And you could literally go up this lake, come through the woods here, and be on them from behind, and they would have no idea you were there. And just hide during the day. That's what we did. We hid during the day, bivouacked, and then we came out at night, and we used our infrared. Use the infrared to look for the engine block signatures, and then you just fire those missiles, and boom, they're gone. That's the way we were trained, because we knew we would be overrun by the Russians. Our bases would be surrounded. Their artillery would hammer our cities in Germany and our cities, our bases, and that we were trained to go out at night into the woods, get behind their lines, and hit their supply trucks, hit their artillery, and wipe them out, take out their effective support. Because the Russians, you've seen how bad they've done so far. Without artillery and without especially close support artillery, they're very ineffective. It will break their morale, it'll break their ranks and stop their offensive. Now, speaking of their offensive, somebody posted this, and we'll take a look at it here. So, Paulina Ivanova, who's a correspondent covering Russian Ukraine for FT, which is Financial Times, she took a picture. And this is Lyshenko doing a briefing showing that he is not innocent. But look at this map. Okay? This map is very, very interesting. You should basically use and copy this map. Okay? I do think it's interesting. So you see how they have U.S. 1st Cavalry patch there? I don't know why they have that, but there it is. This is not a map of where they're at. This is a map of their goals. You see? You see what they're doing? So they're going to hold Western Ukraine and not go into Western Ukraine. You see here, they're going to bypass Kyiv and surround it and hammer it. You see they have the little things here for artillery. Okay? And then they're going to push down from here and link up to where the river is. So basically, everything northeast of this river, they're going to try to take. With the republics here, they're going to try to join these together with Crimea and push up to the river basin here. Then they're going to try to move west to Odessa and move up along Moldova. And that's going to leave a vast open area between this river and here where we can effectively hit them. They're thinking if they take the cities, that'll be the end of the war. So this is not a map of where they're at. This is a map of their goals. So I would use this to the best of my ability. Matter of fact, I'm going to copy this and save this to my memory here. Hold on one second. Alright, so if you compare that map, okay, to where they're at right now, I don't know how current this is. This is from Wikipedia. You can see it matches up almost to the T. Okay, but the Russians still plan to come down to here and still plan to come down to this river and plan to push over to Moldova and then link up these areas. So basically they're planning on taking this area right here. So about like right there. They've got a long ways to go, but they're being really systematic, and they're doing what what we were trained they would do, is to go in with their tanks and their APCs, surround the cities, and then hammer the cities. Well, what they told us is that they would probably use gas and small tactical nuclear weapons on some of the cities and bases. But you can expect more of this. Alright, we'll keep going here. I'm going to keep this up though. Now, I'm following this guy. He's really cool. I'm going to put his information on my YouTube site. But this is Terrell Jermaine Starr, okay? And Terrell Jermaine Starr, I believe he said he's been in Ukraine 10 years. Right now he's a press correspondent. I've seen him on, TV and stuff like that. I don't think he's a trained, maybe he is a trained journalist. I'm not sure, but he's traveling all around Ukraine, and especially around Kyiv, and risking his life, dodging bullets to get the message out there. And he's very good, very effective. If you can help him at all, here's his Cash App, there's his Vimeo, so he can stay in the field and keep reporting back. This is, every couple of hours he's reporting, he's reporting back what's happening in Ukraine, what's going on in Ukraine. This is a Ukrainian guy that's kind of his escort. Very, very interesting. But yeah, if you can help this guy, he's very good at what he's doing.
Russians will kill everybody.
Oh, wow.
Ukraine will win.
Only Ukraine will win.
Only Ukraine will win. Fuck Russians.
Oh no,
we'll
that's
kill
somebody
everybody
off the street.
for our land. It's our land.
Okay, guys, you see what people have to say about that. All right. To report that.
Will win.
Good.
Only you.
All right, let's see. This is another one he's got here. So this one, they've taken a Russian tank.
Блять, на танке, блять! Охуеть! Блять! А туда держи курс! Подожди, Слава Украине! Славяну, молодцы вы! Первый ударный танк! Кацапский танк послужит Украине, блять!
So again, like I said, the Russians don't have enough fuel, motivation, or ammunition, so they're abandoning their tanks. So the effective move is to go after their artillery, because that's what the Russians are using to break the will of the Ukrainian people. So get out those Jaeger teams, those hunt teams, hunt down that artillery from the woods, and hit them every night. You'll devastate them. And then the Russians will just abandon their tanks and walk home. But that's TerrellJStarr. And we're going to keep checking in with him. He's very good at what he's doing. He's risking his life. He's amazing. All right, we'll keep going on here. So this is the beef that Putin has, that the dissolution of the Soviet Union was the greatest tragedy in the 20th century history. And he blames that on the West. He thinks that the West caused that to happen, which again, it's like Hitler and the, about the Jews stabbing the Germans in the back and the loss of World War I. It's a total fucking lie. So it even says right here, okay, that, let me see here. It says the leaders of the Soviet Union's founding and largest republics, the Russian SFSR, the Ukrainian SSR, and the Belarusian SSR declared that the Soviet Union no longer existed, and 8 more republics joined them shortly thereafter. Gorbachev had to resign the office of president and was left, what was left of the parliament to formally acknowledge the Soviet Union's collapse. Now they came together, okay, and signed these accords on December 8th, 1991, okay, in the Vyskuly Belovich Forest in Belarus, okay, near Minsk. It was no Americans involved, okay, and basically the accords formed an agreement that declared the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics had effectively ceased to exist and established the Commonwealth of Independent States in its place as a successor entity. The documentation was signed at the state dacha near Vyskuly in Belarus on 8 December 1991 by leaders of 3 of the 4 republics that had signed the 1922 Treaty of the Creation of the USSR. Boris Yeltsin, Leonid Kuchuk, and let's see, and Belarusian Chairman Stanislav Shuzvek. Now, if Putin has a beef, he should take it up with those guys and not be blaming Ukraine and Zelensky and the West, because that just is not what happened. Okay? All right. All right, we'll keep going here.
Over now to Kyiv, where we can speak to our correspondent on the ground there, Sasha Vakulina. Sasha, it is good to see you. Ukrainian resistance has been very strong. We're now on day 5 of this invasion, a day that President Zelensky has said could be crucial in this fight. What are Ukrainians bracing for right now?
The Ukrainians are now bracing for any moment they take it as the crucial moment. As you said, this is day 5, and what I've been hearing here in Ukraine, in Kyiv, in Ukrainian capital, is that people say, look, I don't know what day is it today, is it Monday, Sunday, but I do know that this is day 5. This is the feeling, this is the new reality that people all over Ukraine are living. They are bracing for anything that's coming, they're trying to stay strong. Tonight has been very tough. I myself is now in the shelter, and we have been hearing sirens going off here every 5 to 10 minutes with the messages, warnings about possible air raids, and everybody is going to seek shelter. This is this afternoon. These intensified sirens started right after negotiations were over.
We understand that people did start to emerge from their homes a little today after a weekend under curfew. And of course, I have to wonder, how are they feeling? Can they get the supplies they need? I mean, just sketch out a picture of this new reality that they're facing.
Indeed, this morning there were very long queues to the supermarkets and the pharmacies when people finally left the shelter, left their houses, trying to restock on food and water. The supermarket said that they're doing their best. Indeed, there are some products, something that is missing and not enough. Or, for example, it is not easy to find bread in supermarkets nowadays because many bakeries are not working, and those that have bakeries, the supermarkets with their own bakeries, they just cannot keep up with the demand because, of course, when people go out from their shelter today to restock on bread, food, water, medical supplies in the pharmacies were open. They're not just buying it for themselves, they're also buying it for everybody who stayed in the shelter. Many Ukrainians did not go out, they just designated somebody to go and pick up food and water, groups of men helping that out, so they were trying to restock because, again, look, When this curfew, the weekend curfew, was over this morning, we were announced at first that the new curfew, the regular one, is the one from 10 o'clock in the evening. This decision has changed. It will start earlier tomorrow, which means tomorrow during the day the decision might change as well. People are trying to get enough supplies because you never know when the new curfew will be introduced and when they will be out to go out again to the supermarket. They just try now to get what they need and to get what the people around them need, because many are still staying in shelters and staying together there.
All right, Sasha Vakulina in Kyiv for us, reporting from a place in a shelter there. Thank you so much, and of course, do take care, Sasha.
All right, so as you can see, the Russian strategy is gonna work if they hold on to their artillery. So what they're doing is they're using the artillery to terrorize the people. They're using the tanks.
Russia claims its forces have taken the Ukrainian city of Kherson. It would be the first.
They're using the tanks to surround the city and cut off supplies from coming in. Eventually, I'm surprised they even have any food there, but eventually you're going to start seeing the stores run out of food and water, things like that. That's what the Russians are trying to do. That would cause moral panic, morale to drop and panic among the Ukrainian people. Again, I want to emphasize the effective strategy is to send out these Jaeger anti-tank hit teams to knock out their artillery, hit them every night, hunt them down, destroy them. Okay? The tanks can attack if they don't have artillery support. That's Russian doctrine right there. All right, so we'll go into this one. This is the NSDC, the Press Service of the National Security and Defense Council. And we will just refresh that real quick, and then we'll go back a couple of hours and see what they have here. All right, there's the Parliament. Oh, wow, I got to follow them. Hold on. We'll put them up. I didn't see those before. We'll follow the Parliament. What we mean by saying it's a people's war of Ukraine. All right.
Вооруженные силы Российской Федерации никаких ракетных, авиационных или артиллерийских ударов по городам Украины не наносят.
That's artillery right there, folks. You see it coming down multiple, that's artillery.
Хотелось бы особо подчеркнуть, что в ходе проводящейся сейчас на Украине специальной военной операции российские вооруженные силы не наносят ракетных, авиационных или артиллерийских ударов по городам страны.
Читайте, что сказал Путин. Никаких ударов по гражданской инфраструктуре не наносится.
Wow. War crimes against civilians right there, folks. But like I said, the most effective strategy right now to save Ukraine and save Kyiv, which is the most important thing, is to send out these Jaeger hunt teams to hunt down this artillery and knock it out. All right, let's see what else we have here. Town near large, thousands of civilians came out to let occupiers know they don't need to be saved, that they're in their country on Ukrainian land in response to Russian occupiers use grenades. There are victims.
Да ты шо? Ой-ой-ой-ой, господи, оторвало ногу человеку. Скоты, вот это русский мир. Да ты шо?
All right, let's see what else we have here. All right, so we got that one yesterday. There's good old Stephen King. I love this guy. All right, we'll keep moving on here. This is the Ukrainian parliament, and let's see what they have. Yeah, see, there's the president inside the Ukrainian parliament signing the application for European Union. And what's this? Yeah, there's artillery hitting. All right, we'll keep going here. All right, we'll keep moving forward. This is Ukrainian news. I'm sorry, this is France 24, French news in English, and we'll see what they have here. Let's take a look at that one.
To Dr. Natasha Kurt from the War Studies Department at King's College in London. Thank you very much indeed for finding the time to speak to us on the programme, Dr. Kurt. It's now a week into this war in Ukraine. Clearly, Russian forces have struggled. They don't control any city as we understand it today. Do you therefore think that Russia is going to change tack and target civilian centres more directly?
That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's very likely, because if you look at the way that they've operated in previous conflicts, such as Chechnya or Syria, you can see that Russia is by no means hesitant in targeting civilian areas.
It is different in a way, isn't it? Because Aleppo, for example, a country that didn't have a particularly close relationship, Syria didn't have a particularly close relationship with Russia before the war. Ukraine is not only Russia's neighbour, but it is a country where many Russians have families. Do you think that Russian fighters will actually be willing to besiege and attack Russian cities in the way that we saw in places like Aleppo?
Sure.
Well, there may be some, of course, who may refuse to follow orders or even desert, but the vast majority will probably be too scared to disobey orders. Because of what might happen to them if they do.
Or their families.
Indeed, and we've seen those images from Russia in the past few days of Russians going out into the streets to protest what is going on, but we've heard today that about 6,000 Russians have been detained doing that. Do you suspect that we will see more demonstrations in the weeks to come, or as you suggest, actually is it too risky for people to do that?
Well, it's already too risky for people to do it, so only the very, very bravest of people are coming out onto the streets, and obviously it's a massive country, so it's difficult to generalise. But I think the thing is that it is going to become more difficult, because even, for example, people who are trying to leave the country, a lot of
Excuse me one second, I
want to become more
show
difficult.
you something here. All right, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You see along these roads here, you see how close these vehicles are together? You see these patches of woods here? This is what we were trained. Okay, especially at an intersection like this where it goes off. Once they get into this area, we've got a team here, and a team here to totally slaughter them. Okay? And triangulation of fire, they'd have no escape. Especially after... If we hit them at the very end of their convoy, they're not They can't turn around and go back. We've hit them. That's what we would have done. Waited till they passed, till they got the end of the convoy, got about right here, and then we would have just slaughtered them. You take out the first one, you take out the last ones, everyone else is stuck. This is what the Afghans used to do in the Panjshir Valley, is they would do exactly like this. They'd hit the first couple of Russian tanks and hit the last couple of Russian vehicles and then just open fire on everybody else. Once the cities are taken, the Ukrainians are going to have to learn to fight from the woods, from the mountains, to be guerrillas, to come out only at night, to hit the Russians only at their weakest points, their fuel trucks, their supply trucks, their artillery. Never go after the tanks unless they come into the cities. Okay? That's what we were taught. That's what they should do. If you harass them, these poor 19-year-old draftees have no food, no sleep, no fuel, and there's chaos every night, it'll break their morale.
Analyze. But I think the thing is that it is going to become more difficult, because even, for example, people who are trying to leave the country, a lot of people are trying to leave Russia to go to Armenia, for example, or Turkey, and their phones are being checked on the way out by the intelligence services, to see who they're talking to and so on. So those kinds of internal repressive kind of measures will only increase.
And if it will be hard for Russians to pressure Vladimir Putin from the street, what about within the corridors of power? Do you have a sense as to how much support Putin's plans have among the Russian military establishment? May there be any kind of pushback to his plans if they do become more aggressive and civilians are targeted?
Nobody in the government or the security services or the military is going to turn on Putin. There's only one way that they would, and that's if Putin tried to launch a nuclear war. Okay? That's the only way I can think of them possibly turning, but there may be, it could go this way, like Trump tried to do. Fire that general, launch a nuclear weapon. Oh, I can't do that. Fire and kill that general. Fire and kill that general until they find someone who'll launch the missiles. Now, he really doesn't need anyone to launch the missiles. He can launch them all himself. But whether the Russian generals on the other end will turn that key, we'll find out. But I think the most effective way is to overwhelm the police with the protesters, because like I said in my other videos, is 3 or 4 policemen needed for every protester. If you get 100,000 in Moscow, it's game over. There's not enough police. But the thing you have to remember, though, is the fear factor. Fear of getting arrested. What's going to happen to Russia if Putin doesn't continue and the West comes after Russia? So we'll see what happens here.
In large numbers in the weeks ahead.
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. So far it seems as though he isn't being challenged from within his inner circle. Traditionally, in terms of civil-military relations in Russia, the military will do what the politicians tell them. I think an exception was in 1993 when Yeltsin enlisted their help to storm the parliament building. But that's probably the exception rather than the rule. On the other hand, there seem to be some signs, very nuanced signs, that, some in the military are not happy about this move, and that, the idea was that, only Donetsk and Luhansk would be targeted. We're still trying to work out, to be honest, what, the kind of military really think about this. So we may not know for a while about, the answer to that question, really.
And another rather difficult question, if you'll forgive me, just finally, Vladimir Putin's potential endgame at this point. As we've been discussing, it doesn't sound like this war has gone particularly to plan so far. Do you think that he hopes now to occupy a part of Ukraine, to force Vladimir Zelensky from power? Where does this end in his view?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. It's not clear whether there is an end game, although I would point you to an article that was published a few days ago by RIA Novosti, but then retracted again. And it seemed to be something that they had in readiness for a possible Russian victory. And that set out the kind of vision, if you like, of a kind of post-conflict Ukraine, with Russian victory over Ukraine. And that seemed to suggest that there'd be a kind of union of Russia, Belarus, Ukraine, essentially Ukraine being brought back into the Russian fold. So clearly a Ukraine without Zelensky. Today, I think Yanukovych was in Minsk, and there's been talk about Yanukovych being brought back, being brought in as a kind of puppet leader should there be a Russian victory. I think that would be a very strange move given his unpopularity. On the other hand, Russia doesn't really care very much about its own population. It certainly wouldn't care about winning any hearts and minds. So, that's a possible scenario. But then, any Russian occupation is obviously going to have to be without the consent of the Ukrainian people, and will only succeed with wide-scale repression, which is a kind of scenario we've seen in Chechnya.
Dr. Natasha Kurt, thank you for your analysis. We'll have to leave it there, but thanks for your time.
Thank you.
I just had a brainstorm here. Hold on. So, I've been thinking about this from the very, very beginning. Why is it that the Russians aren't going for Lviv and Western Ukraine and cutting off any exit of Ukrainian refugees and Ukrainian government exile? And I think because of this map and what she just said, I might have a solution here. So it could be that this is where they're going to stop, right here. It's actually odd because this is my red line that I put on my, list of things that NATO should move into this area, and this would be the red line. The Russians shall not pass this red line, or they would be attacked by NATO. I think the Russians are going to take these cities, consolidate eastern and central Ukraine, stop here, okay, install a puppet in Kyiv, and then hunt down the rest of the fighters and withdraw the majority of their forces, but create this union that she's talking about between Belarus, eastern central Ukraine, and I don't know what they would call it. But if you look at the maps, okay, the old maps, you see that this was Poland right here. This all belonged to Poland. And that after the war, Poland took out over western part of Germany, and then Belarus moved in and took these areas of Poland. And there are old maps that show Poland controlling this area. It was divided between Poland, Romania, and Hungary. I don't know why they would want this area that would be vulnerable to Belarus, but I believe that's their end game. It's to move in, consolidate, take these cities, consolidate, install a puppet government, and then keep them propped up with Russian military forces. Whether they're going to go into Western Ukraine, I don't know. We'll find out. But we can break that if each city, you see what they're doing here, they're trying to surround the cities, and then you see this is artillery. You see the artillery? To take these cities. If you can break the artillery with these hunter-jaeger groups, you'll counter any kind of plans they may have. Anyway, all right, so we're going to end there, and we'll continue tomorrow. I'm going to keep jumping back and forth between these websites. This is the Ministry of Defense, so it's been shut down, the website, and these news stations, and we'll just keep going back and forth and see what's new here. All right. Yeah, internet disruptions across Ukraine. Okay, so we'll continue this every day. Keep going through all these news sites and government sites and trying to keep abreast of what's going on. All right, take care. Good luck. Oh, and Slava Ukraini.